So I adapted the PebblePad workbook from the Australian Government Reflections on Your Structured Workplace Learning Placement, 2013. Students document broad information around their placement, whether they've read the Code of Conduct and had an orientation into their workplace. Students then provide an overall assessment of their work integrated learning placement. Students are asked to consider what their strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities are, and they can then start thinking about how to build their learning goals for their work integrated learning placement from their SWOT analysis. I also want students to think about what ethical conduct means in the workplace. For international students, it can be quite difficult for them to go into an Australian workplace. So I've asked students to reflect here about their interactions with people in the workplace. So the structured reflections here are around how they communicated, where they thought students might have performed well in terms of communicating to get the work done, where they might have had to ask for further information, or where they didn't understand something. I also wanted students to think about how they might need to work on improving communication. PebblePad had lots of advantages over the previous tool that I was using for reflections, in that you can include both unstructured and structured data capture. Teamwork is another important factor in the Australian workplace, and students are asked to describe their role in the team. Actually, students thinking about how they get the work done whilst on placement was another thing that I wanted to capture in the PebblePad workbook. Using PebblePad, I was able to include prompts to support students to reflect on the kinds of things we were interested in them thinking about. So supporting students to complete their work, so getting them to reflect about how they applied theory in practice, their decision-making processes, how they developed and thought of creative solutions to the real-world projects that they're asked to do on WIL, and how they adapted to changes. So often, whilst students are on workplaces, things change, projects change, their ability to be flexible and adaptable. So again, here the advantages of PebblePad were that students can record examples of how they've applied coursework, skills, knowledge or theory, and then a practical example of how they actually did that whilst on placement. Students are also prompted to think about a situational problem that arose during their placement, and to think about what they learnt from their experience and how they might perhaps tackle a similar situation going forward into their careers. Here they can include examples of where they use these particular skills during their work integrated placement. Prompting here students to think about the technologies used, how they learnt about the new technologies, how they were exposed to them, how they were applied in the workplace. Using the PebblePad portfolio, I am able to get students to reflect around the professional development that they were able to undertake during their work integrated learning placement, and to get them to think about what they might need to do going forward and the skill gaps that they may need to focus on, and for them to develop a plan of action. The power of PebblePad here was being able to include a list of the kinds of things that they might be thinking about, and this has been adapted from the Griffith Careers and Development page. Using the PebblePad portfolio, I'm finding that I'm getting much deeper and on-target reflections around the domains that I'm interested in. The PebblePad portfolio, by being able to include checkboxes and text instructions, has meant that I can scaffold student learning and prompt their reflections in a more structured and focused way.